We ain't really with that talking, bitch, we bout that action. He not about that life, man, catch him in the tracks. We ain't really with that talking.
So the Chicago Bears, I like what they've done with their draft. I like some of the players that they brought in this offseason. New coach in Matt Nagy. He was a good coordinator for the Chiefs. While he was there, he really learned how to use that offense. He really learned how to spread defenses out, and he was kind of the mastermind behind that Chiefs offense. So, and that's something that the Bears need. You know, the Bears defense has been good. Their offense has been a little bit stagnant. You know, last year it was very stagnant. Now, the reason that I think this team's going to get fourth, and why I'm not really too excited about the Bears. Now, I think the Bears have bettered themselves, and I think they're going to be better in the future. It's just the fact that the Lions, new coach, they've improved the things that they needed to improve upon. And then you talk about the Packers having Aaron Rodgers, him being healthy this year. They probably added the least amount this summer, but because they have Aaron Rodgers, they still are one of the top teams in this division. And then the Vikings, obviously, having probably the best defense in this division, and then adding Kirk Cousins and the offensive weapons that they already had, the offensive line. So I think that it's just going to be a tough year for the Bears because of the division that they play in. But I think this team's on its way up. Let's start off with Mitch Trubisky. Let's talk about him for a minute. Now, when he was drafted first round out of North Carolina, this is a guy that I saw the talent in him. I saw that he could run. I saw that he had a pretty good arm. But I felt like because he only played 1 year at North Carolina or started 1 year at North Carolina, and the fact that there really wasn't a whole lot of film on him, I felt like he was a guy that would be easy to fall to the third or fourth round. So I was really surprised that they went after him as high as they did. I mean, he definitely looks talented. He definitely looks like a stud as a player. And let's just see if it all pans out on the field. Now, in the little bit of time that we got to see Mitch Trubisky last year, I was pretty happy with what I saw out of a rookie quarterback. He got just a little bit of playing time, not a ton. You know, he got kind of like the normal rookie. You know, didn't start the year, play a couple of weeks at the end of the year. You know, or towards the end of the year, kind of get some of those games under your belt, those last 6 to 8 games, and then this year is kind of like when you're ready. But the problem with this year is just the fact of the division. But I mean, that doesn't mean you can't try. So let's talk about some of the things this team did this offseason. You know, adding Trey Burton and Allen Robinson in free agency. They really, really started free agency off right with those ads. Those are good ads. You know, Trey Burton may not be a number one tight end in the league, but the way that Matt Nagy is going to be able to use him, I think he's going to be a good player for this team. And then just the fact that really have had issues with tight ends since what was his name? The tight end that they had here forever went down. Can't think of his name. Miller or whatever. Zach Miller, that's what his name was. So when he went down either last year or the year before, they really haven't had a tight end since then. So I think that was a good one to bring in and to kind of solidify this offense a little bit, because this offense is really what was the issue last year. Now let's talk about the running game. I think the running game is actually pretty good. I like Jordan Howard and I like Tariq Cohen. Very good balance there. Howard's more the power back. Cohen's the speedy third down back that can get out and catch passes. I really like that combination of guys. That's exactly what I would do if I had my own team. I would have my running back situation look like this: a power back and then a flex type slot type guy. Tariq Cohen's a guy that I think fantasy-wise, I'm not sure on Jordan Howard. Jordan Howard could have a good year, but at the same time, Jordan Howard could have a tough year. 2 years ago, Jordan Howard was a real steal in fantasy. I think I picked him up through waiver wire. Last year, you had to draft him, and you had to draft him pretty high, and he was an all-right player, pretty all-right player for you throughout the year. Tariq Cohen was a waiver wire guy last year, and he was a good flex guy. So maybe he can be a flex guy this year. I think he's going to be a guy that's part of the offense. So As Bears fans, I think Tariq Cohen and Jordan Howard are good running backs. Now, the offensive line is all right. Cody White here, Kyle Long, and then they added James Daniel from Iowa, who's a rookie. He's slated as the starting guard right now, and then they have Charles Leno. I'm not real sold on this offensive line. I think it's an all right offensive line. Bobby Massey's also on the offensive line at right tackle. But I'm not really sold on the offensive line. It's an all-right offensive line, but I think it's gonna suffer in a league that has very good defensive lines. So that's an issue there. But really, the way that I gauge an offensive line is how the running game goes, how the quarterback, if the quarterback has time on passing downs to get the ball off, how they set up, how they ask each other, who to block, who they're picking up, assigning the right blocking scheme is kind of the way. And we'll see what happens with that when the season comes along. Wide receiver-wise, Kevin White, a guy that's been basically hurt his entire career, really highly touted guy. You don't really see wide receivers get drafted top 10. I think they drafted him like 7th overall. So they kind of missed the first-round draft pick that year, and they've missed it for 2 years. And he's a guy that's kind of a talent that we hadn't really got to see yet. So we'll see if Kevin White can get it all together this year. Taylor Gabriel, really, really fast slot-type receiver, came over this last summer. And then Allen Robinson. We'll see if Allen Robinson can get back on track. You could tell Allen Robinson wasn't really a fan of being in Jacksonville with Blake Bortles. And so we'll see if him and Trubisky can get on the same page and really get something going here. Allen Robinson is a number 1 type receiver, and he can put up number 1 type receiver numbers. It's just, can he get the opportunities, and we'll see if he gets the opportunities here. Now let's talk about some of the young guys that they added. Anthony Miller, probably this guy was a top 5 wide receiver on my prospects list. I think he was probably the number 4 or 3. Anthony Miller was a guy very under-recruited. I think he was a 3-star or 2-star recruit. He went to Memphis, and he's done nothing but shine since he's been at Memphis. Catches tons of balls, catches beautiful one-handed passes, and I think this guy's going to be a real stud in the league for a long time. I think he can play. I think he's going to be a slot receiver, and he reminds me a lot of like Odell. The way that he plays, the way that he carries himself, the confidence that he plays with. Javon Wims is a guy from Georgia. I'm not real too high on Javon Wims. He had a good national championship game. He showed, promise throughout the season. But I'm not really that high on Javon Wims as I am Anthony Miller. I think Anthony Miller is going to make a real impact real soon. And then you talk about this defense. Now, the defensive line is all right. Akeem Hicks is a good player. Eddie Goldman, good. Jonathan Bullard are some of the guys on the defensive line. It's an all-right defensive line. Akeem Hicks is definitely the ringleader of the defensive line. Now, linebackers, I think this linebacking core could be a really good linebacking core in years to come. Danny Trevathan, a guy that used to be in Denver, real good, solid player there. Leonard Floyd is a guy they drafted out of Georgia a couple years ago, and he's just a physical specimen. And we're still trying to see if he can get it all together as a player. And then Roquan Smith is the big guy that the Bears added this year. He's going to be the big guy that's going to be part of the starting lineup on defense now. I think he's going to make an impact early on. A lot of Georgia rookies on this team, which is funny, him and Wims. But Roquan Smith was definitely probably one of the best linebackers last year in college, and I think he's going to make an impact early on this year. They've got a couple other good guys, Aaron Lynch, a kid named Nick, I can't say his last name, Kwiatkowski. I know he played at West Virginia a couple years ago. He was a really good tackler. And then they added another rookie out of Western Kentucky. I can't even say his name. It's Joel. And then it's like Lyegbuniwe. I'm not even going to try to pronounce it because I'm going to screw it up. Sam Acho, another linebacker that they have. They run a 3-4. They're going to run a 3-4 defense. Is that right? Is his name Kylie? Kylie Fitz? I thought his name was Kyle Fitz, but Kylie Fitz is what it has in this book. Out of Utah. He's an outside linebacker. He's pretty good. And then let's talk about their secondary for a minute. The secondary is good, but I think, there is room for improvement. Prince Akamora is an all-right cornerback. Kyle Fuller is a good cornerback. I like Kyle Fuller. Adrian Amos, strong safety, really like him. And then Eddie Jackson, a rookie he was a rookie last year out of Alabama. I like him too. So pretty good secondary. And then I've heard also Kevin Tolliver, a guy that was undrafted, has been really making an impact in training camp for the Bears. he's trying to make a roster spot right now, and I've heard real good things about him so far. So Kevin Tolliver is another guy to watch in that secondary for the Bears throughout the year. Talking about some ads that they had this offseason, Chase Daniels, Benny Fowler, Cody Parkey, some of the guys, the big guys we talked about, Taylor Gabriel, Allen Robinson, Trey Burton. Some of the guys they lost, Jarrell Freeman, linebacker, Mike Glennon, not a bad loss, Christian Jones, tough loss. I mean, he really wasn't that impactful as he was supposed to be, so not that big of a loss. Pernell McPhee, he kind of, lived his final days as a Bear. He was good at first, and he kind of injuries, and he didn't really play as much this last year. Josh Sitton went to Miami. He was a good guard for them last year. Kendall Wright is off to Minnesota. One of the receivers that could stay healthy for the Bears last year. The Bears, last year they just didn't have a receiving core at all. Cameron Meredith went down. Kevin White went down. They kind of never had a receiving core last year. Josh Bellamy was one of their better receivers. So I think this year the fact that they're going to, they have a pretty good receiving core, already, I think is going to help. And I think their defense is going to play good. I think, their defense was good last year, and I think it's going to keep them in some games this year. I think it's just going to be how explosive is their offense going to be in this first year. I think Mitch Trubisky will be a good quarterback. Maybe not this year. Maybe it's going to take a couple years of growing pains. But the big key, I think, if I was looking at any points of maybe weaknesses, I'm looking at this offensive line as maybe a point of weakness. Because the skill position on offense is really good. They've added a lot of big-name guys that are going to be explosive in the offense. And the defense hasn't been bad. And then they added Roquan Smith, who's going to be a good player on this team. So we'll see with the Bears. Like I said, I think the main issue is just the division that they play in is why they're going to, their record's going to not be as good. And then just some things that I said this offseason that I thought they should do. They should add depth to the O-line, depth to the D-line. I thought they should draft some secondary or bring some secondary in, to go with some of these young guys like Adrian Amos and Eddie Jackson, Kyle Fuller. Address the tight end situation, or draft a tight end, and they addressed that with getting Trey Burton, and then address the wide receiver position. They needed an X for Trubisky, and they did that. So they did a good job of adding the things that they needed to do this last summer. Some other guys, if I did that, the only guy I didn't mention in the rookie class, Belai Nichols, a DN out of Delaware. I know little about him, but 5 wins last year for the Bears. I'm looking at maybe 5 or 6, maybe 7 if it's a good year. But I don't see them being anything crazy this year. Just a tough division.
Loud, loud, loud.